Well, the conversations taking place on your television screens could very well shape the outcome of the 2020 race, or at least people's reactions to it. Regardless of the outcome of this election cycle, one lesson will likely last longer than any of the candidates, that being the public's perception of the media. Even when it came to Tuesday's race, we learned that polls were off, pundits were wrong, and our neutral arbiters of the truth were anything but. Here to help us break down the latest reactions across the airwaves is Curtis Houck, the managing editor of the media watchdog group Newsbusters, the official blog of the Media Research Center, also known as mrctv.org. Curtis, it's a pleasure to have you on the program as usual. The president yesterday addressed the nation for the first time since Election Day, but some of the networks did not take that speech, at least not for long. So here's what you saw, for example, if you were watching MSNBC.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late. I've already decisively won many critical states, including massive victories in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual position of not only interrupting the President of the United States, but correcting the President of the United States.
So, Curtis, ABC, CBS, and NBC, they also cut away from those remarks, and then Fox News, CNN, and One American News stayed with them. What did you make of the decisions to cut away?
Well, I wasn't entirely surprised. Well, first, I think it's also important to back up as the president's statement wasn't that very long. You know, it wasn't like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. This wasn't a State of the Union address. The president didn't take any questions. You can take issue with that, but we're just talking about from a time standpoint. It was a very quick statement, and the president left. So it would not have killed them to do that. CNN lost their minds, but they carried the entire, press statement. So really, it's not that big of a deal. But there are a couple of things with MSNBC that I found interesting. So 35 seconds. That was how long they made it from when the president started speaking to when they left. Number two, look who it was in that clip that brought up, that spoke first on MSNBC afterward, Brian Williams, Lion Brian Williams. So the irony there is just, absolutely incredible, mind-blowing. But this just goes further to, as you talked about in your open, about the media shaping the narrative, the media telling you what to think. And the media in this day and age have gone beyond that they're trying to tell people how to go about their lives and really what their political persuasion should be.
And I think that 35-second point is so important because you're right. It wasn't like it was a long rant that just wouldn't end. They didn't last on it for long. And the reason why those networks cut away, according to them, is that the president was making unfounded decisions about voter fraud. That's really what MSNBC was saying when they did that. And then yesterday, there was also a viral moment from MSNBC's Jacob Sobroff, who was pushing former acting DNI Rick Grinnell on those claims as well. I want to take a look at that really quickly.
Come this way. Hey, Rick Grinnell, we're live on MSNBC right now. Can you talk about the evidence? You are claiming thousands of illegitimate votes here in Nevada. What's the evidence?
You should go in and ask the question of the Clark County,
No.
which you haven't
done
yet.
You guys just made the claim. No, in fact, you also said there's no election observers. There's Democratic and Republican election observers inside, Mr. Grinnell. Former DNI Grinnell, acting DNI. Where's the evidence of the fraud?
So kind of a chaotic scene right there, but we also heard from Trump ally Chris Christie on ABC say that if the Trump campaign is going to make those claims, they have to show evidence. And we heard something similar from Rick Santorum on CNN. Do they have a point to some degree?
Well, I think that's why it's incumbent upon investigators and, maybe the Department of Justice to get a move on with this. But specifically in Nevada, allegations of non-residents voting, because in Nevada, there's a residency requirement for how long you have to have lived, in particular, we're talking about Clark County here, before you can vote. You can't just show up on the same day and register to vote. You can, but you have to have proven that you've lived there for a short period of time. So, yeah, I think that's why it's incumbent upon the legal system to really get a move on. I know that's really kind of an oxymoron, asking the legal system and the courts to move quickly on something. But, yeah, we're talking about an election here, all right? At the very least, the court should be able to do better than what Nevada has been doing, which, there's a couple things that Nevada does really well: staying up late and counting. And we're seeing none of that in Nevada right now, which is absolutely insane. So again, I think that's why it's so ridiculous. And also, kudos to Jacob Soboroff. He's making himself out to look like a real superhero there, screaming at Rick Grinnell there. He really thinks he's doing the work of the people here and expecting us to trust him with all of his bravado there.
And then, Curtis, on the other side of this argument, it's people like Sean Hannity of Fox News, I've heard it from Tucker Carlson as well, who have been defending the president and raising questions about the integrity of the election. I want to show how Sean Hannity has been addressing the situation this week.
The times, places, manners of holding elections for senators, representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. In other words, the state legislature, they decide election law and regulations, not local or city officials. And by the way, it is illegal for them to block observers or restrict location to 20 or 100 feet where you can't observe. It's also illegal for the city of Philadelphia to disregard a court order mandating that observers be allowed back in. Does that invalidate the process, considering they're violating the law? And what is the remedy? The only remedy I would see at that point is they did it and they violated the law. Nobody can testify to the legitimacy of what their counting was. Oh, what, a do-over in that state? By the way, something that has never been done in a presidential election.
So Sean Hannity is coming to the defense of the president, but we did see Donald Trump Jr. voice some frustrations about other establishment Republicans and leaders not doing enough to support the president at this moment, including going on TV. Lindsey Graham did go on Sean Hannity, but how important is the media at shaping the narrative in moments like this?
Well, we're seeing it on the other side. We've seen it all day here on CNN, over on CNN and MSNBC, really setting the table for what a Biden-Harris administration would look like. In other words, zero accountability whatsoever, fawning over the fact that Joe Biden is finally becoming president after, 40 years of trying, plagiarism allegations proven to be true, scandals out the wazoo, policy flip-flops. And then it extends to Kamala Harris's policy flip-flops as well. So we're seeing that. So then on the other side, what Sean Hannity is saying here, yeah, I mean, this is why we need to really look at these sorts of things, because you have, in Philadelphia, it's like at least 6 feet. They're behind like rally barricades where they're kind of watching. I mean, when you think of election observers, you're thinking of them sitting at the same table as the poll workers, looking at the same ballots together, holding them up, reading them together. And it's kind of almost comical looking at what you're seeing, these particularly Philadelphia and Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is as well. And I'll just say, as a native Pennsylvanian, particularly from eastern Pennsylvania, I'm not entirely surprised about what we've been seeing here. And it is not racist. I think no matter what, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, if you're an elected official in Philadelphia and you haven't been charged or at least served a search warrant at some point in your career, and also throw in union bosses, you're not doing it right in Philadelphia. So I think it's important to take a look and see what's going on.
No, as someone from Chicago, I can relate to exactly what you're saying. In fact, Rod Blagojevich was on air this morning saying that exact same thing. He's saying in all of these major cities, there is corruption. I mean, there's no doubting that, but I guess that's not our job to litigate, according to those in the media. But we are seeing mixed reactions from many people in the media when it comes to the current results of the race. However, the Late Show's Stephen Colbert had a moment that made headlines on Thursday night when he literally broke down into tears while addressing President Trump's remarks earlier in the day. Let's play that clip.
So we all knew he would do this. What I didn't know is that it would hurt so much.
So, Curtis, you and I have talked about this before. President Trump has saved a lot of these shows and networks because of the ratings that he brings with him. So whether it's in 2020 or 2024, President Trump will eventually be out of office. What happens to the state of the media, late shows, news, whatever it may be, after that?
Well, I would point to a study that found, not unfortunately from us at the MRC, but it found that 97% of all late night comedy jokes were going against Donald Trump going into this election. Though, as we've seen by that clip as well, there's really not a lot of jokes in there. There's no laugh tracks. There's none of that in there. We could have spent this entire segment talking about all those sorts of things. This is Stephen Colbert going like Al Gore in that South Park episode. I'm super serial, guys. like This is what he's doing here. It's so ridiculous. It's not comedy, and people are saying this is funny. It's not funny. I mean, this is it's just so ridiculous. It makes you long for the days of the faux Republican conservative, faux Bill O'Reilly character that he played on Comedy Central. At least that was supposed to be like a parody, whereas this is Stephen Colbert just being himself. And I mean, it's just so desperate at this point. And Joe Biden is winning right now. He's winning in these states, and he has, regardless of discussion of fraud, the vote totals show that he is ahead right now. So Democrats should be excited, and yet they're upset, which goes to a deeper message about how liberals and progressives will always be unhappy.
Yeah, and some people go to those shows, for example, to escape the news and to escape what's going on. That's why comedy exists to some degree as well. But I mean, I guess they will have to make some changes the same way that viewers are going to have to make some changes as well. And I didn't think that we'd get a South Park man-bear-pig type of episode reference in this. Very well done, Curtis. I appreciate you coming on the program tonight. Thank you.
Anytime, Alex.